And unfortunately, in today's generation, there's so much ignorance in the world that people do not even understand the magnitude of it. And I get mail all the time from people that thank me for saving their life, literally. How? Not just by getting them to keep Shabbat or other things, but also people that have been religious their whole life, people that have perhaps even in some cases, not just religious, but serious Torah learners, but never knew the magnitude of the sin of wasting seed, never knew how bad it is. They knew it was bad in some cases, or they didn't know at all. But after they heard our lectures, they realized the magnitude of this problem, and they stopped. And they say their life is much better. They stopped losing money. Their marriage got better. In some cases, their health got better. In another case, we had a miracle happen where a child that was in the house got better as a result of the father stopping to waste seed. And many, many other miracles happened. This is the foundation. This is what's called the yesod. When you look at the Kabbalistic picture, the famous Kabbalistic picture of how the soul looks like, where you have these circles, and then it ends off with a triangle on the bottom is called the yesod, the foundation. And the foundation is exactly where the Brit is. Why? Because the Brit of a Jew, the Brit of a human being is the foundation of their connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How you treat your sexuality, how you treat your morality, how you treat your neshamot that you're producing to the world is going to determine whether or not you understand that God runs the world or not. Whether or not you understand that the Torah is the only divine document in the world. Whether you understand that there's a God that's watching you at all times. But unfortunately today, the ignorance is so high that not everybody has watched our lectures. And many times, the first time they'll watch something, they'll watch a short clip, or they'll watch a video that I mentioned, and they say, oh, wait a minute, why is he talking about this? How come, this is not such a regular topic for a rabbi? I never heard my rabbi say it. And they contact me and say, listen, Rabbi, why are you being so negative? Why are you talking about such a disgusting topic like Tikkun Brit and wasting seed? It's an ugly subject. Don't you want to just teach Torah instead? They're so ignorant, they don't realize this is the foundation of the Torah. Without having a kosher Brit, there is no Torah. And that's why we see it all the way from the beginning of the Torah, from Adam HaRishon, who actually himself ended up leaving Chava for 130 years almost, and unfortunately ended up wasting seed. It ended up coming out while he was asleep, which produced many, many demons that are damaging the world until this day. And this issue continued to create bad into the world all the way to the 10 generations later of Noach. And a generation of Noach were full of wicked people, to the extent that there was only one person in his family that was righteous enough to let the world continue existing, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to destroy the entire world. And the Zohar HaKadosh says that the only reason why the world lost its right to exist, they had many sins have happened back then and still happen today, but yet the world exists. Why did the world get to such a point? Because they literally wasted seed so much that it wasn't enough for them. So what did they do? They became immoral with people. That wasn't enough for them. Immorality with people wasn't enough. They started becoming homosexuals. That's what the Zohar says. They started becoming homosexuals. But even that wasn't enough for them, because when you're immoral and you follow the addiction, it gets worse and worse, no different than crack and cocaine and the rest of the horrendous drugs in the world. So immorality with self, immorality with another person, immorality with the same sex. And that wasn't enough. What they do, they legalized gay marriage. They made it a holy event. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like I'm telling you the news. It is the news, unfortunately. It's the news of today, and it's the news of Parashat Noach. But that's what Rabbi Nachman of Breslev says, that when a person is immoral with himself as a result of not developing good character traits, as a result of not being careful when it comes to arrogance, when it comes to humility and so on, he becomes immoral. He becomes immoral with the opposite sex. He becomes immoral with the same sex eventually. And it can even lead to becoming immoral with animals. Hence the reason why there's over 1%, which means we're talking about millions of people here. Over 1% of the U.S. population of somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 to 400 million people. So 1% of that, perhaps more at this point, because this statistic I already learned 10 years ago. 1% of the population in the United States admit that they have relations with animals, sexual relations with animals. This, Rabotai, may disgust you, and it should, but the reality is it should scare you too. Why? Because if you or someone you know is immoral with themselves, you're not that far away from that. You're not that far away from that. The whole subject of Tikkun Brit was such a critical subject for our sages that the only time you ever find them praising themselves in the Gemara, because they were very humble people, so humble that when someone would offend them, they would go to them and just be next to them, waiting for the person to hopefully, apologize. So there's no bad blood, and if they didn't apologize, they would just forgive them anyway. The humility that the sages had was something that's unbeknown to us. But yet the sages were very proud each time they passed another night and did not waste seed, even though it was accidental. Nonetheless, they were proud of it. They were proud they were holy enough during that day that evil did not come to them at night, as the Gemara Masechet Avodah Zarah says. Be careful and watch your eyes during the day so evil does not come to you at night. And the sages are very proud of themselves only in regards to this. You're never going to find a sage start telling the whole world how they're the best in Torah, they're the smartest in the world. No, they're only going to see them praising themselves when it comes to the issue of Brit. And this is why this was a fundamental teachings in Judaism from the beginning of the Torah, throughout all of the generations until the last few hundred years, especially this last 100 years, or even less, 70 years or so, where the subject of Brit started becoming more and more foreign, to the point where you have some people saying that it shouldn't be talked about at all. As Rabbi Yaron Reuven alav shalom said, shame on us if we feel perfectly comfortable being immoral in the streets, but not comfortable to talk about morality, talk about Tikkun Brit. But yet you have many people that call themselves Hasidim, call themselves Kabbalist teachers, call themselves rabbis, whatever they call themselves, and their students come to them and say, listen, Rabbi Reuven told me that I have to protect my Brit, I have to do this, I have to do that. Oh, no, you don't have to do it, it's okay. Don't be so negative, it can easily destroy you. The rabbi said that you shouldn't talk about this subject. Just yesterday I had a guy, poor guy, I told him, I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry this happened to you. He said, what do you mean? Sorry for what happened to me? I said, I'm sorry that you've been lied so much. You've been lied to so much by your rabbi that you actually got to the point where you believe the lie is true. He sends me a comment saying, listen, Rabbi, why do you talk about Tikkun Brit, this wasting seed? It's an ugly subject. Why don't you talk about something more positive? And I told him, the emet is always positive. The truth is always positive. If you are about to take a drink, and I knew that there's poison in that drink, and I yelled at you before you put that drink in your mouth and kill yourself, are you going to call me negative for telling you that you have poison in your drink? He said, no. I said, exactly. Well, you're drinking poison. Why? You're going to a Erev Rav, not a Rav. He goes, no, but he teaches me Kabbalah. I said, he teaches you Kabbalah? I said, serious, he's teaching you Kabbalah. Have you ever read the Chumash? Have you ever read the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses? Have you ever read the Chumash? He says to me, I would like to read the Chumash. Meaning he's never read the Chumash in his life, but yet his so-called teacher says he's teaching him Kabbalah. But yet at the same time telling him not to listen to things that have to do with Tikkun Brit, not to listen to anything that's negative. I told him, your teacher is not a rabbi, he's not a Kabbalist, he's an Erev Rav, he's destroying you, and I'm sorry this is happening to you. He said, listen, Rabbi, I don't think that God really cares whether I eat kosher or not. Here, he's this guy that doesn't think that God cares if he eats kosher or not. He's learning Kabbalah. It's the joke of the century, but unfortunately these types of victims are everywhere. In fact, they're probably the majority of Jews in the world today. They're ignorant to the point of being victims to all types of leopards, all types of sharks, all types of spiritual monsters that call themselves all types of titles that are taking advantage of it. Now that's not going to help anybody when they go up to Shamayim. Why? Just like you investigated the truth about your profession to become an expert, just like you investigated the truth about your spouse in order to marry them, just like you investigated the truth about how to make money and all. Otherwise, you have to investigate the truth when it comes to the Torah. And if your teacher is teaching you falsehood, you're not allowed to learn anything from him. Nothing at all. Even if it's Aleph Bet, nothing. Why? Gemara Masechet Moed Katan says if such a person that's a liar, has such a bad character trait that he's lying about Torah itself, you're not allowed to learn anything from him.